Hey everybody, how are you doing today? My name's Spencer and welcome to Best Ball Draft Addicts. What I'm here today to do is to go through and talk about my first 100 drafts. So the other day I finished on stream my 100th Dinger draft of the year. About a month ago, back on January 28th, I had finished 50 drafts and I made a video going through and talking about my first 50 drafts, player shares, my takes, and I wanted to do that again. And I plan on doing it one more time at the end of the 150 and talk about how the whole draft season went as a whole. So today, what we're going to do is I'm going to show you guys some really awesome tools that are available for free for everyone. And we're going to look at my players that I take and I'll give you all my thoughts. Not only that, I'm going to talk to you about my strategies, my plan, what I've done, what I'm planning on doing. But first off, so I want to let you all know what our schedule is here. So our normal schedule on Best Ball Draft Addicts is I go live and draft dingers every Tuesday night at starting at 9 p.m. Central Time. And then we always try to go live on the weekend, either on Friday or Saturday. Now, one thing I do plan on doing this month, because we're now in the home stretch, we are 25, I think we're 25 days away, guys, or 24 days away from the season starting. So I'm going to probably go live randomly more often during this month. So you guys can just sort of keep an eye out and we might just go live and jump on sort of unscheduled. So that's going to be fun this month as well. Plus, I've got a couple more NFBC drafts that I'm going to be doing on stream. It's going to be a lot of fun. Looking forward to doing that with you guys. So, what I'm talking about today, whenever I say 100 drafts completed, I'm specifically talking about the Dinger contest on Underdog. Now, for those of you that don't know, I'm going to briefly talk about Underdog and their contests. So let me go ahead and bring Underdog in on the stage here. And I want to show you guys, first off, whenever you're on Underdog and if you go to MLB, so you'll see currently right now, you've got the Dinger, which is their main flagship contest. You see here 200K to first. This is one of the biggest prize pools in all of fantasy baseball. Then they also have the solo shot. This is a single entry tournament, as you see, 10K to first. But look, there's only 720 people compared to over with the Dinger, 93.7 thousand people. Then we have the eliminator contest. This is their big eliminator. This is their little eliminator over here. These contests are really fun. They are completely different strategy. This is all about surviving from every 2 week period. I have not streamed any of these, but I do plan on doing that this month as well, just so that we can talk about something different every once in a while. Now, when you go to completed, you can see how many drafts you've done. Now, when I go to the 2020 season here, now you see I've done 103 dingers because it was 2 nights ago, but I recorded and downloaded my, right here you see email exposure CSV. This will email you a spreadsheet, and you can use this for different tools that you can use. Now, I did that after the 100th draft the other day, so that's what we're going to be going through. And I went ahead and removed all of these other drafts from these other tournaments. What I want to show you guys first is last time I used this tool right here, which was a free tool that is provided by a great user named Reducing Juice from the Bubba and the Bloom Discord. And I really, really enjoyed this. This is the first time I've ever used any sort of software to break down my teams and my exposures. But since this came out, Reducing Juice has worked with a couple of other guys, and they have a new website that I've talked about many times on stream already. That's called the MLB Exposer. That's this website right here. And this is what we're going to primarily be looking at today. Now, I do want to go ahead and tell you guys that before I get going here, sort of what my general overall strategy is for Underdog. Now, Whenever I come into the year, what I always do is first try to decide how am I going to approach this draft season from a team construction standpoint? Because Underdog is a best ball platform, which means you just draft, you don't make any pickups throughout the year. So what you have a certain amount of starting lineups, which is on Underdog, 3 infield, 3 pitchers, 3 outfield, and a utility that's a hitter. That's either an infield or an outfield. And then you have 10 bench spots. So with those 10 bench spots, you can do anything you want. So that's 20 total rounds that you draft. Whenever I talk about build types, that starts with, let's just say my most popular build type, which is 7-7-6. That's 7 pitchers, 7 infielders, and 6 outfielders. This is my most common build type. And wanted to go ahead and say, hey, good afternoon. How are you doing? Thanks for being here today. I decided to go live and do this today. So now there's many different thought processes as far as how you should build your team. And I will say there is no right or wrong answer. There's some great information that's given from a lot of people on what they believe is the best way to go. I really recommend for anyone who, if they have not check out Stacking Dingers over on YouTube. They have a lot of different videos where they break down the different build types, advance rates over the last several seasons, what works, what hasn't worked. The answer is there is no right answer. You can make things happen with different types of builds. Ultimately, it comes down to making sure that you pick the right players and get lucky. However, just like with poker, you can be smart about what you're doing and you can set yourself up to be in a good position. So that's what I try to do with the 7 pitchers. In the past, I would usually go with 5 or 6. But when you advance to the playoffs, you need to have pitching that has the opportunity for 2 starts in a week, because you're going to have a 2-week period and your score will lock after 1 week and the next week. Obviously, you need to have good hitting. This is something that is a given. So I personally have subscribed to most of my teams being 7 pitcher builds. As you'll see, I occasionally will do 8 and I occasionally will do 7 or 6, but I almost always will do 7. So let's go and check out the exposures tab. So over here on the exposure tool, as you'll see, I am 100 drafts in. I removed all of my other contests to make sure we're looking just at the dinger. So 100 drafts in, I have gotten very lucky, and I have gotten 14 number 1 picks, 11 from the 2, and you see 10 from the 3. So I've got a lot of top picks. I really have not got a lot from the middle, and then I've got a decent amount here from the end. So this is something where I have gotten lucky to get so many early picks in my estimation. That is going to skew some of my build types because I'm going to have a lot of Ohtani teams, for example. That's not a bad thing. I'm very happy about that. But if you have a lot of drafts in the middle or at the end, it's going to make your exposures look different because you're always going to have different players available to you at different times throughout the draft, just based off of where you fall on the draft board. Now over here, we're going to look at top builds first. So you see under top builds that 7-7-6, like I mentioned, is my most popular build. I do that 60% of the time exactly. 6-7-7, I have done 19 times. Now, with the 6 pitcher builds, those times I normally always have 6 good pitchers where I usually have spent up and have maybe 1 or 2 strong pitchers at the top. And I do my best with those builds to make sure that I am not taking any pitchers who have existing injuries or I have worries about their opportunity going into the season. If I'm doing a 6 pitcher build, I want it to be 6 pitchers that I feel very good about. I have started doing 7-6-7 builds more often because as I've been streaming with you guys and using this tool in real time, I've been trying to adjust what I've done build wise and add more 7-6-7 teams because I realized that I want to have more outfield exposure at the end. Because generally, as you'll see in a minute, I am done with outfield before we get to the end. And then, very small amount of the times, you will see 8-6-6 and 8-7-5. I don't believe these are the most optimal build types. However, these are usually times where I have maybe I've done, like, if you are used to playing football, if you've heard of hero RB, where you take usually like Christian McCaffrey or a top running back at the beginning, and then you push running back for another 10 rounds before you jump back in, and then maybe you bulk running back towards the end. That's kind of like what I've done here with these 8 pitcher builds, where I'll take one early pitcher, or sometimes maybe I'll push pitcher altogether, and I will try to bulk pitchers with that team. Again, I don't think it's ideal. However, I want to have some build types of this kind because I do think that it is possible. Now, one thing you'll see I have not done is have a build with 5 pitchers. So in the past, you would have seen that. I did do some 5 pitcher builds in the past. And I'm not saying that that can't work, but you have to be lucky if you do 5 pitcher builds because most likely you're going to lose one pitcher to injury. You're going to have one pitcher that underperforms. So if you've taken just 5 of them, now you are locked yourself into where you have to rely on 3 healthy pitchers to score every week. And you need more options, that especially whenever it comes to the playoff rounds. Now, over here on the right, you'll see top builds first 6. So in the first 6 rounds, this is how I most often start my teams. You'll see my number one, 28% of the time, I start my teams with 1 pitcher, 1 infield, and 4 outfield. On Underdog, outfields are supreme. Outfields are what go the quickest, and they're what you want to make sure you do not fall behind on. Because if you do, you're going to have a very hard time making sure that you fill your roster out with a good team of outfielders towards the end. Then you'll see 1, 2, 3 is my next most popular with 19% of the time. Then 2 pitchers, 1 infield, 3 outfield. And then my next up is no pitchers in the first 6 rounds. 0-2-4, 0-3-3, and 0-1-5. These are my most popular builds. Down here on this exposure tool, it also shows you how what your top stacks are. Now, you may be wondering, how can I use this exposure tool? Well, this exposure tool is free. I'm going to copy the website link and I'm going to post that in the comments right now if you happen to be watching live. And if not, you can find this over on Twitter. And I shared the tweet of this back whenever it was around 3 weeks ago. You can definitely check that out on there as well. But what you do is, if you see under here where it says My Data, and you see there are different slates, the main slate, the eliminator slate, and the way too early, which was the early drafts. Now, as I told you, I removed my information to just put in my dinger exposures here. I'm going to go back over to Underdog and show you guys again where you email that exposure CSV. Once you have that in your email or on your computer in your downloaded folder, then you simply go right back over here and you hit upload CSV, and that automatically puts in all of your information, which fills into all of these tabs. It's very simple, very easy. There are some amazing tabs on this website. So first off, under players, if you see, I'll start off with my highest, most popular player that I have taken in the dingers. 30% of the time, I've drafted Kazuma Okamoto. Now, as we look at Kazuma Okamoto, you see here 30 teams. This tells me how much money I've spent from that 30, my exposure percent, and how often I have stacked him with teammates. 80% of the time, I have stacked Okamoto with other Blue Jays. I'm a very big fan of Blue Jay stacking, which I will show you that shortly. This shows my ADP trend, and you'll see how I have gotten amazing value on him. So where I have been drafting him from the beginning, I've been taking him late. The latest that I ever took him here was at pick 225 back on January 15th. Whereas his most recent on February 21st, let's see, yep, that's the last time that I took him. I had to take him at pick 177 because that's how much his price has risen over from January 12th until today. You see how much I have started fading taking him compared to how early I was taking him. That's because as his price has risen, I'm not taking him as often. It's just that simple. His ADP currently is 170. My ADP is 200. So I have an ADP gain loss of almost 30 spots. That it tells me I've gotten great value on Okamoto throughout the draft season. Another guy, a teammate of his that you'll see here, is Dalton Varsho. Dalton Varsho has been one of my most highest drafted players of the entire draft season. You'll see I've got him as low as here's 157, here's 156. Whereas the most recent time I took him on February 28th, just the other night, that was at pick 105. So Dalton Varsho has risen steadily and consistently throughout the last 2 months of drafts. His ADP is currently 112. My ADP for him is 137.7. That's a gain loss of 25. So both of those Blue Jay players that are two of my most highest drafted guys, I'm not taking anywhere near as much as I was because their price is rising. And I want to make sure that I'm spending a price that I like and I'm not overreaching on guys. Now we have a drafts tab. This is an amazing tab here, which you can search by players, you can search by build types, you can search by team stacks. But what I want to do here is just simply show you when you click on a team, look at how amazing this is, everyone. I hope you can see this on your phones. But here's this team that I drafted on February 26th. You see, I took 2 Rockies. That was the only stacks that I did from this build. Otherwise, this was an unstacked team. The 2 Rockies I took were Hunter Goodman and Britton Doyle. But this shows you right here very easily exactly what their ADP is, what your gain loss on ADP was, what pick number you took them. Here is projections, so you can see what the projections are for those players' stats. This is according to the BATX. You can see that for all of your players here. And if you want to know what their schedule is for the playoffs, here it is. So as we look at schedule, look at round 2.1. Now, round 1 is the whole entire regular season. So what you have to do is finish in your 12-team league first or second to get a ticket to the playoffs. Once you get that ticket to the playoffs, you advance to round 2. Round 2 consists of a 2-week period. So we can see here that the Tigers, look, I can hover right over it. In the first week of the playoffs, the Tigers have 3 games at Seattle and 3 games at San Francisco. They have, in the second week, 3 games versus Cleveland and 3 games versus the White Sox. Now, ideally, what I would like if a Skubal were to pitch on Monday or Tuesday, and then if he pitched on Monday versus Seattle, then he would turn around and pitch most likely on Sunday at San Francisco. And then the next week, he would pitch the following weekend at home versus the White Sox. That is an ideal pitching setup for Skubal if it falls right in the first 2 weeks of the playoffs. That just gives you an example of what I'm talking about. Then you move on to the round 3. If you finish getting a ticket and you are at the top of this 2-week period and you are randomly inserted to a group that we call pods with other people that got tickets in advance, and then you have to do that again for another 2-week period. That's round 3. Then that moves you on to the finals. which is round 4 and another 2-week period. This is where it's a free-for-all with all advancing teams. One thing you can see here, in the finals, the Braves, first week of the finals, so I have Ronald Acuna on this team, they only play 5 games. So that's 1 game down. You'll see the only player that has a 5-game scheduled week that on this team during the playoff weeks. Otherwise, it's 6 or 7. That's really awesome. So I personally have not dug into these playoff matchups and what pitchers could line up against what teams because I'm not trying to project that out in my mind. However, I will tell you this is amazing to be able to go and look and see this. And it is something that I'm going to note for this season to see how important this theoretically could be, what I could take away for the future next year as far as if this information can truly help me. I know it can be helpful in football. I've tested that out already for a few years now, but I'm not an end-all be-all playoff week football drafter either. This is the combos tab. The combos tab, you can search any player. Like, for instance, I searched Shohei Ohtani, who I have gotten 16 times, and you can see right away the player that I have paired with him the most is Max Muncy and Chris Sale. I have paired them 50% of the time with Ohtani. That's out of my Ohtani shares. So overall, out of all of my 100 teams, that's 8% again, because we're looking, that makes that easy since we're out of 100. Let's say, though, I wanted to find out Teoscar, for instance. How many times I've paired Shohei with Teoscar, I can search that. The answer is 5. 5 times. Pair rate, 31.3%. So that is very helpful if you want to try to make sure that you're diversifying who you are drafting with who. Because this matters. Let's say Max Muncy, I was taking almost every time because he's a teammate with Shohei. I've done it 50%, but what if I had it 70 or 75%? So now 70 to 75% of my Shohei Ohtani teams, if Max Muncy goes down, which we've seen happen before, or if Chris Sale goes down, which we've seen happen before, if I have more than 50%, that's with 16, a count of 16, then now I have cut off half of my Ohtani teams from losing a player whenever I could diversify those shares, have less Muncy with Ohtani, spread Muncy across other builds or Sale across other builds, pair them with other players. This is the thought process and mindset that you need to have and how you can use this information to your benefit. This is my personal favorite tab and what we're going to be looking through here in a minute as we go through and talk about my top player shares, and that is the ADP board. This is the current live ADP for the Dinger, and you can see as you move along exactly what your own personal percent, which again, this makes it very easy because I know exactly how many times I've taken guys since we're looking at 100 teams. So for instance, I'm on Bobby Witt, 5%. So I've drafted him 5 times. Now, let's say I want to know, look at this. I'm going to go to Bobby Witt. In those 5 times, who have I paired with him? Well, look, here we go. I have got, based off of ADP, you see I've gotten lucky to have paired Rooker 40% of the time with him. I've taken Gunnar, Skeens, Churio, and Devers. So that means 2 times I've taken Rooker in round 2, and then once I've taken Devers, Gunnar, Churio, and Skeens with Bobby Witt. I immediately am going to go see, Vinny Pasquantino. And then I see Mikael Garcia. You see these teammate pairs, 60%. That means 3 of 5 times I have taken them with Bobby Witt. Now, this also 5 times tells me I need more Bobby Witt teams as I finish out my final 50. I'm going to talk about that in just a moment. Here we can look at MLB teams. And what this does is shows you, based off of your entry fees, which teams you are most invested in. Now, you can see right out of the gates, the team I'm most invested in is the Toronto Blue Jays. And it looks like the Los Angeles Dodgers. shocker, the 2 World Series teams. Now, this could be looked at as good or bad because a lot of times you have World Series hangover effect where you teams that made the World Series the previous year actually have bad seasons. We've seen this happen with Atlanta in the past. We've seen this happen with Texas in the past. And really, the last 2 years, these teams haven't kind of recovered from that effect. Hopefully, they will this year. As you see, Atlanta and Texas are 2 of my next most high drafted teams. Boston is right after that. I'm a very big fan of drafting Boston. And I can see that the White Sox are low, the Nationals are low, the Diamondbacks are low. These are all, and as I hover over, you can see exactly how much money I have invested in players from the team. So as I'm over Houston here, Tetsuya Imai is my highest drafted Astro, then Altuve, Hunter Brown, Christian Walker, Paredes, Jeremy Pena, Carlos Correa, Jordan, and one Jesus Sanchez. Now, I drafted him when he was still on the Astros, apparently, since that's what he's listed as. However, he is now a Blue Jay. So that's not going to reflect in people that have been traded from the time these results were recorded. It's going to lock in from the what it said on the website at the time of their draft. Now I can also click on timeline. So timeline, what this does is this shows me my ADP gain loss over the course of the draft season. Now, I will be honest with you, I've not spent a lot of time looking at this to really get a good idea. But let's just go ahead and click on, for instance, what I see as the top team. Looks like right here, January 18th, I drafted a team that had a ADP positive of 197.7. So as I scroll through this here, we see all green. So every pick that I had on here is now looking at an ADP positive gain from when I drafted him to where they are now. I can see easily Cade Horton, Nolan McLean, 2 of my top pitchers that I gain value on. At hitting, there's Okamoto, there's Manzardo, there's Caglione, and Dalton Varsho. Dalton Varsho being the biggest one with the 33.7 ADP gain. I took him at 146, and he now is being drafted at 112. I took Caglione at 98. He's going at 88, but I'll be honest with you guys, he's going even higher than that now. The last several days, Caglione has started going in the 70s, I have been seeing. And then let's go look at one of my worst ones. So one of my worst ones was on January 28th. And look at all of this red. These are where I overspent on guys compared to where they are now. No shocker to see Carlos Rodon, Shane Bieber here. If you have hurt guys, that's definitely going to do it. Looks like I reached. This is one where I was easily stacking. So you can see ADP lost based off of reaching for stacks. So you see I had Yankees, Tigers, and Blue Jays. This was a team where I went kind of crazy because I don't normally do this. But look, pitching and hitting, I went an entire Blue Jays, Yankees, and Tigers team. This is not going to work. And I had bad value, obviously. I reached to make these plays work. For instance, I reached to take Cody Bellinger at the 2-3 turn with Aaron Judge. So he has an ADP of 39. I took him at 26. Skubal, I was able to get him. That's a positive. That's one of my only positives. Okamoto was a positive. But this just gives you an example of what you're looking at with this tab. And then finally, there's the portfolio tab. They do also have an advice tab, which is interesting, which says consider shifting away from. And I don't really get it, though, because I'm not quite understanding. Like, for instance, I know I've only drafted Conley early one time. It was just the other night. And currently, I have 0 shares of him as I go to players and I type in, so I did have him one time in this where I had drafted him back on January 13th. I again just drafted him last night. That would have been my second time. But I don't really know why in the advice tab it says consider shifting away from him at the top since I've only taken him one time. But it gives me other names and options that I could mix in. All right. So that is an overview of the exposer tool, which is very, very awesome. And again, anyone that's free, I think I already showed you guys. I hope you understand how to use it. So now let's get into the nitty gritty of who am I drafting? Okay. Just as a reminder, as I go back to portfolio, just to take a look at where I've been getting my most common build types. Mostly at the top, light in the middle, a little heavier towards the back end. Now, with that said, back to ADP board. So we start off with seeing that right at the beginning, I am very happy to have 16%, 16 teams with Shohei Ohtani. Now, if you notice, I haven't got pick 1 16 times. I've got it 14. That means twice I've got Shohei from pick 2. Aaron Judge 9 times, Soto 10 times, Acuna 9 times, and Schwarber 9 times. Now we reach the area of the people that, again, from having the least amount of middle picks, and I primarily have been fading Corbin Carroll this entire time. This could be to my detriment. And I mostly like to take outfield at the beginning. If I go back over here to the original exposure portfolio that was provided by Reducing Juice, we can see here in the first round, I have taken 82% of the time an outfielder, 18% of the time an infielder, and I never take pitcher in round 1. But I'm very heavy with pitcher in round 2, even though my round 2 is almost evenly distributed between pitcher, infield, and outfield. I'm very happy to see this because this is different than my first 50 shares, and I have been putting an effort to try to make round 2 spread my exposures around, and I can see that I've done that. Back over here. So I am very in on taking Fernando Tatis. He's one of my favorite guys to take 14% of the time. I have been working my way towards getting some more Jose Ramirez in my life. I'm now up to 6%. At the turn, Ellie and Devers are the most common turn based off ADP. I'm going to point out the people that I'm very either high or very low on. When we move into round 2, who I am very low on is Yordan Alvarez and James Wood. Those two guys, especially Yordan, could absolutely burn me. And I know this. I think James Wood is slightly too high. I wish he was a little bit lower, or I would have more exposures of him. Yordan is priced right. I have no problem with his price. But as you see, I like taking Skubal, Vlad Jr., and Yordan falls in the wayside mostly because I've already had an outfield in round 1. Again, I've talked about how I just showed how I am, 80%? Yes, 82% of the time outfield in round 1. So that's just why I haven't been getting Yordan. I don't have a ton of faith in his health. But with all this said, I do want more Yordan in my final 50. And that's something that I'm going to make a note on right now is as I'm going through here, I'm going to note some people that I want to increase or decrease. Yordan, I want more shares of. Now, I think James Wood is about right. I would like more of these 3 young studs. Honestly, all of these guys towards the back end of the first round hitter-wise, I would also like to increase these percentages. Kurtz, Gunnar, Churio, Roman Anthony, Pete Alonso. All of these guys I'm very in on, with Churio being a slight exception. It's kind of like with James Wood. I don't feel as good with these guys in round 2 compared to versus Skeens, Skubal, or Vlad Jr. Those are the main guys that I take there, or I mix around the outfield as you see. Once we go into round 3 and you see 17% Skeens, I'm 18% Crochet, so he's the most, but that also makes sense since he's the latest value. That's 15, 17, and 18. I'm very in on getting one of those studs, guys. I'm not afraid to pair them. If I go over here to the combos tab, let's say I look for Skeens and Crochet. I have paired them 4 times. Let's see about Skubal and Skeens. Have I been lucky? I have paired the 2 of them 3 times. and Skubal and Crochet. I have not paired Skubal and Crochet. So that's something I can make a note of. Pairing Skubal and Crochet if I can. Note is made. Back to ADP board. All right, in round 3, one of my most popular picks is Wyatt Langford. I'm also very in on taking Jaron Duran. And then you'll see I mix very evenly Jackson Merrill, Junior Caminero, Randy Arozarena. I've been adding Lindor in more as his price has fell since the hamate injury. Who am I staying away from in round 3? Pete Crow Armstrong, 3%. I have not spent up enough on Cal Raleigh and Pete Alonso, I don't think. Matt Olson is someone who I would like to have more. I'm surprised I only have 3%. And I wonder, have I done that with Acuna? And if so, how often? Let's find out, guys. I have done it one time. So out of the 3 teams that I've taken Matt Olson, one of those has been with Acuna. Now, as we move into round 4, my favorite picks of round 4 are Cody Bellinger, 13%. I'm very happy to draft him since he re-signed with the Yankees. Big fan of Taylor Ward, 10%. My most popular round 4 pick is George Springer at 20%. Now, Ian Happ is 11 and Yamamoto is 11. Who have I been fading? Ketel Marte, Jazz Chisholm, and I have a very small amount, 5% of Betts, Bryce Harper, and Tyler Soderstrom. I bet you that Soderstrom also has been paired with Athletics. So this tells me I probably should pair Soderstrom with some other people. But let's find out if I'm right. So Soderstrom, let's see the Athletics that go before him are Rooker. I've done that 2 times out of my 5 Soderstrom. And Nick Kurtz. I've done that 1 time out of my 5. So 3 out of my 5 times I've taken Soderstrom. I've taken him with A's. All right, now we're going to move on to round 5. In round 5, my most popular picks at 14% of the time are Byron Buxton, Hunter Brown, and Jurickson Profar. So again, 2 outfield and a pitcher. So you will see I'm not afraid to mix in these top pitchers that aren't the guys that the big 3. Now they are at a smaller percent. Yamamoto 11, Christopher Sanchez 7, Hunter Brown 14, Logan Webb 3. This does tell me that I should probably lower my Hunter Brown compared to Christopher Sanchez and Logan Webb, because I don't think that he's too far away from them, that I should have this many more times that I take him compared. Now, someone that I have only mixed in here recently is Zach Neto. So if I go back over here to my player tool, select Zach Neto, yes, I have just taken him. I took him right at the beginning. It looks like back on February 10th. Nope, that wasn't the beginning of this contest. That was my first share of him. And then I took him on February 18th. I did take him again the other night, but I only had 2 teams with Zach Neto on it. He's someone that I would like to get more of. No doubt about that, because that could burn me in round 5, only having 2% Zach Neto. And you'll see in round 6 and round 7, I'm very big on taking Mike Trout and Joe Adell, but I'm not pairing them with Zach Neto. This could be a good or a bad thing compared to the field. If the field is mostly pairing them with Neto, you could look at it positively or negatively that I'm not. In round 6, I mentioned my highest drafted round 6 player is Mike Trout. I am not afraid to draft Mike Trout, and if/when he gets hurt and burns me, it is what it is. I've accepted that risk, and I've decided we're just going to count on Mike Trout to, at minimum, help me enough to advance and then hopefully be healthy for the playoff weeks to help win me some money when it matters. Jose Altuve, 14% of the time. I like taking Jose Altuve because he's a veteran bat who I feel very dependable about, and I enjoy stacking Astros pieces later. So I know I can take him, and it will open up some later Astros. You see, I do not take a lot of other players. I do mix around some, but really in round 6 ADP, my fades are 3% Perdomo, 4% Lawrence Butler, 4% Logan Gilbert, Dylan Cease, and 3% Freddie Peralta. All of these round 6 pieces that I've been fading, I could get more shares of. I would say Perdomo makes the most sense why I'm not, because I have so little Corbin Carroll and Ketel Marte. That was 3% Ketel Marte, 2% Corbin Carroll. So it makes percent why I'm 3% Geraldo Perdomo. I'm rarely ever pairing them or stacking them. So that could be a mistake, though. Those are 3 good players. That could be something that I regret. As we move into round 7, my favorite play is Joe Adell and Chris Sale. Chris Sale, one of my highest drafted pitchers of the Dinger contest. Not the most highest drafted. That has the distinction to go to Jacob deGrom, I believe. Let's go back over here to this other tool real quick, because it has something that I like a lot. And that is, I can go here to the exposures tab, and I can easily see, and yes, 29%. Here's my top pitchers overall. I'll just run through my top 10. Jacob deGrom, 29%. Chris Sale, 26%. Bubba Chandler, 22%. Tetsuya Imai, 21%. Yuri Perez, 20%. Garrett Crochet, 18%. Edward Cabrera, 18%. Paul Skeen, 17%. Nolan McLean, 17%. And unfortunately, Spencer Schwellenbach at 16%. Now, Schwellenbach is someone who I have not taken since his injury. As I go back over here to the exposures tool, and if I search Schwellenbach, you can see the last time that I took Schwellenbach was back on February 8th. Before that, thankfully, because I drafted him a lot early, thankfully, towards the end of January, I had already slowed down taking him. And from January 28th or 27th until February 8th, whenever he got hurt after that, I had only had him 2 times. This exposure was almost 30% whenever I did my through 50 drafts. Now I've got it down, and it's going to continue to go down as we move along, since he won't be drafted on any more of my teams. Okay, and we are back in round 7. Who have I faded completely? Here's my first 0%, Willy Adames. I will be honest with you. I'm going to make a note about this, guys. I have no reason to be fading Willy Adames. I like Willy Adames. I don't really know why I'm not taking him, other than the fact I'm simply just not looking for an infielder in this round. And it's that simple. Go back over here. Let's go see in that what was that again? That was round 7. Yes, that was round 7. And in round 7, I do take an infielder 24% of the time, but that leaves the majority of the time where I'm taking pitcher or outfield. So most of the time I'm taking a pitcher or outfield in round 7. You see Lou Bob, I've worked him up here to 11%, Vinny P at 10, Michael Harris at 11, Hunter Green at 10. I have lowered Ben Rice since the Paul Goldschmidt signing. I do like Ben Rice a lot still. I probably would like to keep him around this 10% range. Corey Seager, I had higher before. I remember that. We're talking about that at the 50 shares. I'm back down to 6%. Here's my next 0, and that is in round 8, Spencer Strider, who I have yet to draft. If you've listened to my streams, you'll know my thoughts on him. I really like Spencer Strider a lot, but I have absolutely zero faith in him until he proves to me that he's back and his arm is healthy. And last year, he did not do that. He pitched. He looked terrible. He looked like a shell of himself. And unfortunately, that's not looking like that's any different right now in spring training. However, we'll see. I'm rooting for the guy. He just won't be on my teams. If he's on yours and he works, guess what? You're going to beat me. In round 8, my other highest drafted players are Jacob Marcy and William Contreras. I'm a very big fan of Jacob Marcy this season. I will tell you my biggest regret of round 8. and that's only having 9% of Jack Caglione. I removed all of my way too early drafts on here, but out of the 150 bullpens in the way too early contest, I had Caglione at a 25% rate, and I lowered that in the dinger, and I'm really upset because now his price is so much higher. I wish I would have just kept going because now he could have been a fade naturally based off the rising ADP. It is what it is. I'm glad that I still have 9 times that I've drafted him. Now we come to round 9, and oh, I'm sorry. I just realized I was still on the wrong tab. Here was back to Marcy and my round 8s. All right, in round 9, my favorite young pitcher to draft, Nolan McLean. You see, it's very rare that I fade people at the top 100%. So far through 9 rounds, actually through 10, Strider and Willie Adames are my only 0 drafted people completely. So I will mix in guys occasionally here and there, even people that I have less shares of than others. But back to my favorite plays, Nolan McLean, then Mackenzie Gore. I've raised that up a lot since his move to Texas. Kyle Bradish, that was higher. That has lowered some. I have him at 11%. It's lowered a little ever since his news of his innings being limited, but I'm still a fan. I'm not that worried about it, but it's enough to have me, occasionally fade him more than I had. And then I'm pretty much across the board even in this round. In round 10, my biggest drafted pieces from round 10 are Shea Langoliers at 17%, Yuri Perez at 20%, and Dalton Varsho at 26%. Varsho, again, as I've mentioned, one of my highest drafted players from the entire draft season, going back to the way too early, where I was at like 40% or more of him in that contest. But his ADP now has risen to the point that I am taking him less and less and less. So no doubt by the time we get to the end of this, that this number will probably be under 20%, although I would like to keep it right around 20%. I'm a big fan of Dalton Varsho this year. The other guys that I want to take more of from round 10, there's 2 big rookies, and that is Jacob Misiorowski and Chase Burns. Now, Miz and Burns, both of those, the reasons why I have not been drafting them is because I have concerns about their innings, about their ability to get wins, and their wildness of giving up earned runs, specifically with Chase Burns. However, Misiorowski and Burns' upside is so high and their potential is so good that I know I need more than that. If you remember, I say this like people automatically saw my previous video at 50, but at 50, I had, I believe, 0 of Misiorowski and Burns. So these 4 and 5 teams have done since that. Zach Wheeler, 3%. I'm going to also make a note to increase Zach Wheeler because I generally try to not take pitchers who are currently hurt, and that's why I only have 3%. But over the course of 150 drafts, I'm going to want some more Wheeler in my life just in case he's healthy towards the end of the year, because Zach Wheeler, we know, has the potential to be a top 3 best pitcher in baseball. Now, before we move on to round 11, which is halfway through, I'm going to come back over to the portfolio manager and look back at these first 10 rounds, and we're going to look at my times that I've drafted these positions. So we can see again, I'm with pitcher. I start ramping up taking pitchers really in round 5, and then that kind of ramps up to round 10. By the time we get to round 10, 63% of the time I'm taking a pitcher in round 10, and I'm only taking an outfielder 12% of the time. So even though we just saw Dalton Varsho in that round, I've not been drafting him in round 10. I've got him later than that, which is why my draft percent is so low at outfield in round 10. Now, as we look to move on to the next 11, you can see here that my pitching stays pretty consistent from round 11 to round 16. And then in round 17, I start to cut back. And this was much worse whenever I looked at, again, after the 50 drafts, I had been taking almost exclusively infield in the final 4 rounds. That still is the case. Infield are my primary targets in the final 4 rounds. From round 17 to 20, over 50% of the time, and in some cases, 75 to 63% of the time in round 18 and 20. That's how often I'm taking infield. Why am I taking infield so often at the end? The reason is because on Underdog, infield is what they're the most available star or potential good plays come at infield late. Why is that, you may wonder? Well, think of it as a simple numbers game. Every team has to start 3 infielders and 3 outfielders. In real life baseball, you have 4 infield positions. How does Underdog counteract that? Well, they put DHs at outfield compared to the 3 outfield starting positions in real baseball. They put DH at outfield. That now you would say would make it 4 and 4. However, catchers go as infielders for Underdog. Now you're simply looking at the fact we have 5 positions that are feeding the infield, while you have only outfield and utility feeding the outfield available players. Therefore, you are going to have less good players available at the end. It's that simple when you compare why do I take all of these infielders at the end and this small amount of outfield. With all of that said, this is why I do it the majority of the time. I still want to get more. And I have been trying to focus on adding more late outfielders as I go, because there are some names down there that I don't want to miss out on, especially now that we've got to spring. And that's what these last 50 drafts are really for me. And that is getting my exposures back towards where I want to be at the end. So basically, the first 50 drafts, I drafted the team the way that I wanted to draft them with my favorite plays. The second 50 drafts, what I did was, and you guys have experienced these with me, I've been trying to stack more. I've been trying to keep my favorite plays, but be mindful of mixing in other guys that I haven't. Now in my final 50, I'm really going to be honing in, using this exposure tool more often to try and get more people that I need, that I have a least amount of. By the way, I've not been looking at the comments. I see we've got a few. I'm going to go over and look at comments here in a minute with you guys. So I'm going back over to the exposure tool, and we're going to now start the final 10 rounds. So in the final 10 rounds, here are my big fades. Ceddanne Rafaela, 0%. Dansby Swanson, 1, and Colton Cowser, 1. Now, the one that I am kind of regretting is Dansby Swanson. I'm going to make a note there. I would like more Dansby Swanson. I don't know about Rafaela. I'm going to put his name down with a question mark. I have faded him specifically in this format because I just don't believe that he's going to be a heavy point scorer in Underdog based off of the research I've been doing. However, I could be wrong, and I do think Ceddanne's a pretty decent player enough. So is he someone I want a 0 of? I don't know, but he will be low by the time we get to the end. I'm not afraid to draft Brenton Doyle. Here are my other 10%: Dalen Lyle, Michael King at 11, and Jeremy Pena at 10. Here we have Connor Griffin at 5%. Now, you guys know I've talked about Connor Griffin multiple times on streams. So someone like him, we all know the reasons why to not take him. I have the reasons why I believe he is a good pick, but I'm obviously skeptical enough to not do that very often. 5 out of 100 teams, I took Connor Griffin. I guarantee most of those had other Pirates on them. I've done that a few times in the streams with you guys. As we move into round 12, my highest, most popular pick is Munetake Murakami, and that has gone up big time in these last 50 drafts. I don't remember exactly what my exposure was whenever through the first 50, but I feel it was around the 12% range. And I've moved that up to 20%. Now, is that too much? Maybe, probably. But I've talked about also the way that values shoot up during spring training and what we're about to see because starting Thursday, the World Baseball Classic starts, and I have been for the last probably 2 or 3 weeks, especially on streams, talking about how I'm trying to preemptively grab some more shares of guys whose price I think might shoot up. Munataki is in that group of guys because if he comes out and has an awesome World Baseball Classic, people are going to really want him. And I know this. So I'm going ahead and grabbing some more now while his price is a little lower. But I expect that to be less by the time we finish. I'm also into Jung Hoo Lee and Sandy Alcantara in round 12. Who have I been fading in round 12? Ryan Pepio, I see 2%. Nico Horner, 3%. I do think that I need some more Nico and Pepio. I don't have a specific reason why I needed them other than it's just not falling together with the picks that I like there and the build types that I've been doing. So in round 12, again, let me go back to this. I normally take pitcher 40%, 46% of the time in round 12. And I think that's really the reason why I have so few of those guys. But Pepio's a pitcher, so who knows? You can see as we move into the next round, Bubba Chandler, this is someone I probably have moved up to the round 12 value. He's one of my highest drafted guys at 22% of the time. I also have taken 14% of Ranger Suarez. Those are my highest two drafted pitchers in round 13. My highest drafted hitter, one of my favorite hitters to click late, is infielder Wilson Contreras. And so far, he's making me feel real good about that pick in spring. I have faded Brandon Woodruff almost completely. Thankfully, I had taken few shares of Jackson Holiday. I say that, but that could still come back to bite me. Jack Flaherty, 2%. This is one that I do agree I should have more. I am not anti-Flaherty. I'm just not pro-Flaherty. As I've said before, Flaherty just sort of feels kind of blah to me, which is why I've not drafted him much. He's burned me in the past so much I have that against him. However, I think he's in a good situation and I should try to draft him more. I do have 12% of Christian Walker. This is one of those later Astros I was talking about that I like pairing when I have Jose Altuve. We'll get to another one here in a few minutes. In round 14, here's where a lot of pitchers that I like taking. Tetsuya Imai at the 21%, Edward Cabrera at 18, and Eovaldi at 14. Now, I know what I said about pitchers and their injuries, but Eovaldi is currently healthy. Even though I've seen him get hurt, I also have seen him be good consistently year after year in the innings that he pitches. Last year is no better example of that as he was a stud until he did get hurt. I just really hope that Eovaldi is healthy come the end of the year, and I feel good clicking his name. I've not been wanting to click Zach Gallen's name 3%. I have done very little Jacob Wilson 3% and Ramon Laureano 3%. I have a very hard time clicking Ramon Laureano here in round 14. If he was going later in the next few rounds, I would own more of him. I don't blame people that do draft Ramon Laureano. But again, I just have a hard time believing in last year whenever I have 5 years prior to show me that he's not worth that pick. In round 15, I am going with Kazuma Okamoto, as I said, as my highest drafted player in the Dinger through 100 drafts. I've taken him 30 times, and he's my highest drafted guy. I do have too much Stanton, especially with the whole news of his can't open a bag of chips thing. 13%, I need to have that under 10, but I just really like Stanton's pop potential for the big weeks that he can provide, and he's almost always my outfield 6. I like to have outfield done by this time before we reach round 16. Again, just to remind, you'll see once we hit really round 14 and on, that's whenever my outfield takes a drastic leap down. But really, from round 17 and on, then I'm not looking at outfield hardly at all, as you guys will see here in just a second. The other people that I'm not mentioning, they're sort of the ones that are right hovering between that 6 to 10% of the time range. One of those I do want to make a note to get more of is Emmett Sheehan, who I have remarked as being one of the best values on this site, even though I have not been drafting it enough. I do Garrett Colin occasionally. He's one of those hurt pitchers that I am just hoping to gamble he will be healthy come playoffs to help me. Jack Leiter, one of my favorite young pitchers to take. I also like doing Texas pitching stacks. I have several teams that have DeGrom, Jack Leiter, Eovaldi, and etc. on them. Who I've been fading. Yusei Kikuchi. I don't believe in him. If Yusei Kikuchi was going in the last round, I might take him a little bit more. I just have never really believed in Yusei Kikuchi. He was really good 2 years ago, but then last year when he signed with the Angels in the preseason, I immediately was like, well, I'm back out on Kikuchi, and that was proved right. So we'll see if I'm right or wrong this year. At least he's solid enough to be a dependable innings eater. I will say that. So if you do draft Kikuchi, at least you should have a dependable guy who's healthy, in my estimation. Speaking of guys who are not dependable and not healthy, but unproven, in the next round you see Chase DeLauder, 7%. I'll be honest with you guys, I'm surprised I've clicked him 7 times. I thought it was less than that. This one kind of surprises me. My round 16 biggest, most popular picks are Addison Barger, 17% of the time, and Kyle Manzardo, 14% of the time. What is the uniting factor between these guys? Both of them big power left-handed bats that I like a lot here at the end. Then we go to my fades, Mitch Keller, Drew Rasmussen, Sal Stewart. These are not fades on purpose other than Mitch Keller, who I have very little interest in drafting. He's, again, very much like Yusei Kikuchi, in my opinion, a guy who's kind of, I like to just say, blah. Drew Rasmussen, he's someone who's really good. He just doesn't go deep into games or get a lot of wins traditionally. And I like Drew Rasmussen a lot more in leagues where your ratios count. But obviously, I've just not been drafting him much here. If we were looking at my eliminator teams, I know I have him more in there. Chris Bubik, I wish I had higher than 6%. I'd like to get some more Bubik in my life. The reason why I have that little is because of the injury risk and potential, but I saw him pitch yesterday, so he's out there right now, and I like me some Bubik quite a bit. Sal Stewart is also someone that I want to raise because I'm not fading him for any reason. I want some more than 2% Sal Stewart. Now we move to round 18. And in round 18, my big pick is Ivan Herrera, who's one of my highest drafted hitters total at 28%. I think that has him as my second highest drafted hitter in this format, in the Dinger. I love Ivan Herrera. There's so much you can do with him too, because in the final rounds, there are Cardinals pieces you can pair him with from this point down. Jordan Walker, etc. Here's Jordan Walker at 4%. You'll see I'm not big on him, but I have taken some of him. In this round, who I have a lot of is Merrill Kelly, 14%. But I have not been taking Merrill Kelly a lot recently because of the news of his injury. You'll see I was taking him quite a bit early. As we look at the dates here in January, here's a lot of Merrill Kelly drafts. And then once we hit here, which was January 31st, I've only taken him twice since that point. I took him once on February 8th, once on February 18th. But this is one that also will be much less by the time we get to the end in my next draft review at the end of the season. All right. Who else do I like down here? Matthew Boyd, 9%. Cade Horton, 10%. This is a fade that could burn me, especially based off of me knowing what a lot of other people like, and that is 0% Jose Soriano. So we're going to get to the point now where I'm really going to focus mostly on my big plays that I like the most and the people that I am fading almost altogether. And if I regret it or not. Jose Soriano, I don't really regret. To be honest with you guys, it's with Kikuchi. I just don't really like taking Angels pitchers. And the one that I'm kind of coming around on some, since at least he's out there healthy, is grabbing a late Grayson Rodriguez, because he's the one who I think is the truly ace potential if he's fully healthy. And you can wait and get him in the last round. You don't have to move up to round 17 or 16 or 15 like you do with Kikuchi and Soriano. I feel very lucky that I only have 2% Anthony Santander. I already wasn't drafting him before the injury, which is surprising considering how much I've stacked Toronto. I just feel lucky. I just wasn't feeling him, and thankfully that feeling was correct. In round 18, my biggest play by far, my favorite click down here is Max Muncy. I think he's so incredibly mispriced. Max Muncy should be much higher than this in my estimation, but it's because people have, I understand he's old, he's been injured, but Max Muncy is a legit power stud and going to hit in the middle of the best team in baseball. And I'm very happy. I will keep him right around the 20% shares by the time this finishes. I'm not afraid to click his name. My biggest fade that you guys have heard me talk about the most, other than Spencer Strider in drafts, is Chandler Simpson. This is one that I am completely open to being wrong about. So I have a spreadsheet that I don't want to try to pull up here right now because I don't think I can share a spreadsheet very well on here. But on this spreadsheet, just as a simple thing that I made is I looked at both projections and results from last year. And when you break down to just simply, you can break down to points for the season, points per game, points per plate appearance, points per at-bat. A number I like to look at is points per at-bat. This kind of tells me something as far as like, is this guy impactful? And I will tell you, Max Muncy shoots up at the top of that list in points per at-bat. And Chandler Simpson is not even in the top 250 hitters, not from both last year and this year in points per at-bat. When I say this year, I mean projections. So I'm just staying away from him. And if I'm wrong and it proves me wrong, then next year I'll be in on it and I'll admit that I'm wrong. But I'm just fading him completely. Another fade completely that I could regret is Jason Dominguez. But I have time to fix this because Jason Dominguez, I've not been drafting him at all, for the reason being that I have been afraid of playing time this entire draft season. That point has been proven true with all of the signings. However, what do I say about the Yankees all the time? We know injuries will happen. The Yankees always have injuries. So I'm sure that Dominguez will play this year at some point. Hope it could be soon. And from what I've seen, he looks good in spring so far. So I did make a note. I would like some more. I say some more. I would like some Jason Dominguez, and I need to start taking him at the end. But again, as you guys have noted, I'm rarely taking outfield at the end. So that also helps contribute to my low number of outfielders as we get down here to the bottom. As we then close out this thing and go into round 19. So in round 19, I don't have anyone that stands out. But one of my other Astros that I'm willing to take and pair, big power bat, Isaac Paredes. I see right next to him is an outfielder I have 0. Here's another 0 is Cam Smith. This one could burn me. Again, I'm just not taking outfield late. And Cam Smith is a good young player, but didn't have a great rookie season. And I don't know how much upside he has for this format. So I've been staying away. Luis Arraez is very similar to my argument for Chandler Simpson, although I think Luis Arraez I have more faith in because I've seen him be good for multiple years. I have taken Luis Arraez in the eliminator format, where I'm looking at just having a steady weekly floor, being helpful more often than in this, which I think he can help your advance rate. Here's the point with these floor guys. They can help your advance rate, and advance rate 100% matters. You have to finish first or second through the whole regular season just to get to the playoffs and get a ticket. But once you're in the playoffs, You need guys who can, again, help drive you towards the top of your group. They need to be able to score a lot of points in those weeks in the playoffs. So that's why I've been spending my late picks on guys who I think have the potential to have the big point scoring weeks. Thus, Isaac Paredes, as you see, Augustin Ramirez. Here's some mix in. I've mixed in Nick Castellanos only since he got traded to San Diego. I had none of him before that. Just recently, I started taking Singa. I loved him last year. I had been drafting none of him. I just got that first share very, very recent. Jake Berger, 4%. I am surprised I don't have more than that, to be honest with you. I'm going to make a little Berger note because Berger does have the power that I'm looking for, and so does Jorge Soler, who's in the next round, and I'm going to make a note on him. Those are two guys that have the exact power and pop week I'm looking for that I have not taken a lot of. Here's one that I have in round 20, 11%, Jorge Polanco. I really like Alec Burleson. I have taken some Noelvi Marte and Xander Bogaerts, but my most popular pick at the end is 23% Royce Lewis. I know I'm a sucker. I know all about everything that I've said about not drafting people who are injured, trying to stay away, blah, blah, blah. I get it. I have a blind spot for Royce Lewis, and I have this. I do not want to miss out if Royce Lewis smashes and has his first healthy, incredible season. I realize that probably won't happen, but I have to spend my last pick. I don't have to spend a price on it other than use my last pick. So Royce Lewis is my most popular into the draft pick because I think he has the biggest upside. With that said, this number will not be at 23% by the time we get to the end. I have already been fading Royce Lewis for quite a while now. And as I show you guys, you can easily see starting in January, look at how often I was drafting Royce Lewis early. Then you see this line here on January 31st, where I went from January 31st until February 13th, a 2-week period where I didn't draft him once. And then I noted that, and I started taking him some more on February 19th. This was probably after a stream where I was talking about him, and I've drafted him a few more times since then, but I have not drafted him since February 22nd again. So that now is at this point over a week since I have taken Royce Lewis. So you can see my shares have been going down pretty steadily as we've gone, but I'm still at 23%. Now, as we close out to show some of my favorite picks from guys who don't always get drafted. And I will point out Schwellenbach, who you see stands out here. That's, as I've already covered, he's only there because of how often I was taking him early. I do like Alec Bohm. So Alec Bohm is a 12%er who is very much in the lines of Royce Lewis as far as someone who I like to take at the end. But with Alec Bohm, he's not the upside play. He's more of a floor play. It's just he's a floor play who I like because I've seen him be steady and good for several years. Now, guys that I want to take more of down here that we've talked about in streams: Tyler O'Neill, Mike Yastrzemski, JJ Weatherholt, who I do have 6% of, Carter Jensen. All of these are around 21 guys you see that I want to draft more as we move along. Definitely more than 1 or 2% of these guys. JJ, I should have more than 6. I want to finish at about 10% of him. And Carter Jensen, I really haven't found valuable for this format, which is why I've not taken him, because I don't believe in his steady at bats. But with that said, he's looking so good in the spring, and I do want to get more than that. I've taken Andrew Painter twice. Now we're down to the guys that below, and I'm just going to point out the people that I have taken. I've taken 4% of Miguel Vargas. I've mixed in Eldridge twice, Caleb Durbin once, 4 times Grayson, 5 times Carlos Correa. Now, this is one, again, let me make another note. It's very much like Alec Bohm and Royce Lewis. That's someone who I've seen, who I know that I do want more. and I should mix him more into some of those Astros teams. Kevin McGonigal is very much like Connor Griffin, and Kevin McGonigal has looked awesome so far from what I've seen. But he's not someone who is like a big power bat. He's more of a really good overall hitter. If you watch him play, he's shorter. He's more of, he can still drive the ball, don't get me wrong, but he's a hustler. He's just, Connor Griffin is a physical monster, and someone who you just know can crush the ball. Speaking of guys who can crush the ball that I have none of, I have no Samuel Basallo. I have been afraid of taking him, but he has prodigious power, and I wonder if I will regret that one. I did just get my first Ryan Nelson share in. That was since pick Team 100, so he's not reflecting on this. I was drafting some Owen Casey earlier, but I've lowered him back down. Parker Messick 3 times. I took some Shane Bieber early 3 times. I've completely stopped taking Shane Bieber. I wonder when my last time I took Shane Bieber was. It was a long time ago. No, I took him on February 5th at 221, but before that, January 28th and January 26th. But yeah, I really am not looking at taking Shane Bieber. I think it's kind of dumb to take him at this point because I'm afraid to say we could have another lost season. 3% Joey Cantillo, 3% Robbie Snelling. Robbie Snelling, he's not looked great in spring, but he's a big pitching prospect who did great last year that I have thought is going to get a job this year, but I've not been taking him recently. Just a couple others I've mixed in down here. Is there any that I see? Verlander 1 time, Luis Garcia 1 time, Will Warren once, Andrew Benintendi once, Dominic Canzone once, Conley Early once, J.P. Crawford once. Most of those were like stack pieces. Now, some names that I want to start mixing more in down here, and I'm going to tell you guys. Okay, first off, Zach Veen. I know I did get my first share of him. That was on the stream after this last night or 2 nights ago, but it was after Draft 100. Austin Hayes has looked good so far in spring training. Spencer Jones, I think I want to mix him in as a just in case because holy crap, he's looking awesome. I don't think he's going to have hardly a chance to play, but I'm writing his name down. I'm looking at hitters primarily here that I want to start taking. I could add Ryan O'Hearn, who I've not taken at all, into some Pirates teams. Let's see. Anyone else that stands out to me that I want to start adding that I have not taken yet? I'm going through. I'm looking at hitters only guys here. Maybe Jordan Lawler, to be honest with you. If he's going to actually play every day, he's someone who maybe I want to take some just in case he has a rookie breakout that people aren't seeing coming. I mean, honestly, I can make a case for why mixing in a lot of these guys. It's just I'm simply not doing it because I think that flat out most of them are worse plays than the guys above. Logan O'Hop. Let's make a note on Logan O'Hop. That's for you, Brad. And let's see. Who else anyone else that I want to make a note on to potentially mix in? So many of these guys I take in other formats. I just don't know that they're worth taking here on Underdog because what matters more than anything, just having the best possible guys on your roster that you can. Mason Wynn, 0%. I should probably mix Wynn in occasionally with some late Cardinals. I just never do that. I took this one Caleb Durbin. I took that. I'm almost positive that was a team that was a Brewer stack, and I think it was like the day before he got traded. Let me see here. I did that on February 9th. And yeah, if we looked up and saw when he got traded, I think it was like the day after, and I had stacked him on a Brewers team. Oh well, that happens. So that's pretty much a run through, guys. There's any number of pitchers that I could take down here. I'll save some pitcher talk for tomorrow night whenever I'm going to be on the Stacking Dingers show with Brad and Sheep talking about late pitchers. And you can imagine that some of the late guys that I'll be pointing out, I've already talked about here on this stream. So now let me go over and look at some of the comments. Let me look at some of the comments here. So let's see here. I watch every stream. You're the man, Spencer. Although I felt a little insane after watching your entire 4.5-hour auction draft, I bet that was a test of endurance. Absolutely. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate that, good sir, very much. And then Joe says, "Hey Spence, I don't know how he's going after Murakami." Yeah, I know. I'm 75 deep and planning to do a similar review tonight. Such a useful website. So useful, FK Coolers. 69% Perdomo flag plant. Okay, so Joe, you being so high on Perdomo, Joe, I'm going to make a note on my notes here. I'm going to try and draft some more Perdomo because he's a flag plant guy for you, and I respect you a lot, and I do know that Perdomo is a very good player. It's just been where he's being drafted that I've not felt comfortable, but I want to make that note. We'll get some more Perdomo teams in our life. FK Cooler says he's really in on Marcy too. With regard to Bubba Chandler, you're basically buying based on projected efficiency, or do you think he throws a lot more than 140 inning pits most are projecting? Yeah, so basically my main reason why I've spent the most on him so much, it's an upside play of just hoping that by taking, this pitcher who should theoretically pitch most, if not all of the season, that he's going to be a breakout. It's not looked good so far in spring. I do think I'm going to lower some of those shares moving forward. Junior Espy says, "Are you taking Evan Carter? I'm looking at these late outfielders too." I don't believe I have. Let's go back over here and let's go search Evan Carter. No, I have not taken Evan Carter yet. Not in this format. Again, I could be wrong. I just don't see very much power from Evan Carter. He's someone who I would have much more interest in other types of drafts. Like, for instance, I know that I took Evan Carter as my fifth outfielder on several of my Gladiator teams back in November and December because I do think Evan Carter is a potentially good play, and I could be wrong with his he has the upside that I could be wrong to fade him in this format. Joe says, "Remember I told you guys you want McGonigal, not Griffin." Very much noted, Joe. Very much noted. And you see that I'm pretty much right around the same as McGonigal and Griffin. And I do think McGonigal is a very good player. I don't know for this format if he'll be better than Griffin. It depends, too, how often each of these guys play. And then Harry Doyle says Perdomo just feels like an eliminator pick. See, that's my opinion as well. I'm not looking at eliminator stuff on here, although whenever I do a shares review later, I'll talk about some of my others. I'll look at some of the overall way that I drafted and see where I've taken guys more of eliminator versus the smaller tournaments versus the dinger. For this, I wanted to focus just on dinger exposures. And that catches us up with the comments. So, guys, this went longer than I expected. I'm an hour and 22 minutes in, but I feel like I was able to cover everything very well. I hope you guys enjoyed this. If there's any takeaways you think of people that I'm making a mistake on, that I'm way too high on, or I'm way too low on, please let me know. I definitely love to hear everyone's opinions. I'm just trying to let you guys know my thoughts. I definitely know that I'm going to be wrong a lot. That's for sure. I hope that I'm right a lot too. I hope I'm right more than I'm wrong, but I know I'm going to be wrong. I know crazy things are going to happen. There's going to be guys that shoot up that are phenomenal picks that I wasn't even looking at. And I love digging into these drafts. I've had so much fun. I've loved doing this with you guys. And just thank you guys all again. I'm so happy there's been like 10 of you guys watching live with me here randomly during the middle of the day on a Monday. I was going to just record this video and then post it like I did with the first one, but I decided to just go live, and I'm glad I did. It was fun to be able to see some comments, even though, sorry, I wasn't able to see your comments live while I was going because I was over on the other tab. But just as a reminder, I will be back live tomorrow night. Going to be drafting at 9 p.m. So come draft some teams with us if you want. And we'll be back this weekend. And then again, I'm going to do some random live drops too. And if you see and you've got the notifications turned on YouTube and you want to jump in just like this, I'd love to have you jump in some of those randoms with me, because baseball season's going to be here before we know it, boys. We are so close, and we only have so many days to draft. And again, I may just jump on sometime and go do eliminators and talk about eliminators with you guys. But on my scheduled shows, that's where I like to have guests come on. And I know we've got Tuesday and this weekend, although it's don't know yet if it's Friday or Saturday, but I will be letting you guys know. Well, again, I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you all. And just remember, until we talk next time, keep drafting. See you guys.